And Donald Trump's back in the Granite State. His first stop, the NH1 News studios. We'll question the Republican presidential frontrunner about how he'd steer the country's economy, including cutting your taxes.
Big tax cut. We're going to create jobs. Jobs are going to be coming back from China, from Japan, from Mexico, from everywhere.
Donald, make my life right now, brother.
And we'll ask him about some of the recent controversies he's sparked.
But how about we do this with CNN? I won't do the debate unless they pay me $5 million, all of which money goes to the wounded warriors or go to vets.
A special edition of NH1 Newsmaker starts right now. I'm NH1 Political Director Paul Steinhauser, and even though this is Tuesday, this is a Newsmaker's special edition, Fiscal Fridays. Now tonight we're going to ask the tough questions, many submitted by you, our viewers, to Republican presidential candidate and frontrunner Donald Trump. He is the frontrunner in the race for the GOP nomination. We're going to discuss fiscal and economic priorities facing our country and facing you, our viewers. Mr. Trump, thank you very much for joining us. Your third time here in our studio. We appreciate that.
That's right, Paul, and I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed. Beautiful studio, actually.
Well, thank you very much, and a lot of that credit goes to our boss, of course.
That's true.
Let's jump in right away. You've said you'll cut 20% from federal discretionary spending, and you've pledged to use, quote, one of the greatest scalpels in history to make tremendous cuts. All right, let's say it's January 2017. You are in the White House. You are the president. What kind of programs? Give us a few specifics. What kind of federal programs would you either cut altogether or trim?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important I would freeze the budget, because there's no way I'd freeze expenses. You would freeze it and you'd stop. The money they're spending is just out of whack, and it's crazy. They went up 5%, they go up 6%. We don't go up on the revenue side, and I would absolutely freeze spending, and that will do a lot to get us back over a period of time, over a fairly short period of time. I would do tremendous on the waste, fraud, and abuse. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste. I was seeing where thousands and thousands of Social Security cards are made out to people with, I think, the age is over 112 years old, where it's hundreds of millions of dollars is being spent. Social Security, people over 112 years old. Now, there are no people over 112, but there's thousands of them. I even have a number that's so high I don't even want to say it, but it's a lot. And there are so many different things that you have to do, and only a businessman's going to do it. I'm the business person. I'm the person that's built a tremendous company, a tremendous net worth. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way. That's the kind of thinking we need in this country. We owe $19 trillion. The 19 is going to be 21. The budget, what they just passed, like in 24 hours, they passed it so quickly, Paul. How do you pass a budget like that in 24 hours? And, you know, when you negotiate budgets, the day after that budget's passed, they have to start working on the next one for the next year. They don't do that. They pass it, and then, like 52 weeks later, they come in and they start negotiating the new budget. They have no power left. We have our speaker went out and said, we will never close our government. Now, it's fine to say we're not going to close government, but that gives all of the power to the other side. It gives it all to Obama, because now he says, well, their primary weapon is taken away, so they just won. As soon as he said that, they won. We would freeze, and we would take the scalpel, and we would knock out so many different things in so many different places. One of them is Common Core. Well, one of them is Common Core.
So would the Education Department go? Some of your rivals for the nomination have said, yeah, let's scrap the Education Department.
Well, it can practically go, because Common Core is a disaster. If you look at Bush, he's in favor of Common Core. I think he can't win just based on that. And others are in favor of it that are running against me. Common Core is a disaster. It means the bureaucrats from Washington are running the education program. And, you know, we're number 28 in the world, and we're number 1 in the world for expense, if you look at that. So we spend more money than anybody else by far. Number 2 is a distant second. So we spend the most money, and we're number 22 in the world, 28 in the world. And, you know, it's sort of interesting. We have third world countries that are better than us in education. So obviously it's not working out of Washington. By getting rid of Common Core, we bring it to the local level, whether it's New Hampshire, whether it's Iowa, whether it's California, whether it's New York. You bring it to the local level where parents get involved, and you'll have good education at a fraction of the cost. So one of the things I would certainly look at would be the Department of Education.
Anything else? Any other departments that have to go?
Well, you look at Department of Environmental Protection. It's a disaster what they do. I mean, they're very inefficient. They destroyed a river, or practically destroyed a river recently, where they let the wrong material out of the wrong bin.
Would you scrap it and give it back to the states, or would you keep it?
I would like to see most of it go back to the states. I think you have to have a little protection in terms of certain things. We want clean air and we want clean water. That's what we want. Clean air and we want clean water. But much of it, just about most of it, can go back to the states.
You just hit upon the debt, and you said that $24 trillion in debt is the point of no return for our country. So let me ask you, what is the biggest threat to the United States? Is it terrorism? Is it ISIS? Or is it the country possibly going bankrupt and becoming another Greece?
No, I say it's terrorism. I say it's ISIS. It's not, by the way, global warming. You know, we have a president that's right now saying the biggest problem we have, the most dangerous thing that we have is global warming. Our biggest problem is nuclear warming. If we have stupid people in our government, which certainly we have right now, we have among the dumbest in the world. Everybody takes advantage of the United States, whether it's China, Japan, Mexico, whether it's Vietnam. They're starting to take a lot of things from us. Vietnam is a hot one right now. But everybody takes advantage of us. Our biggest problem right now is terrorism, nuclear, all of the things that truly basically still wrap up into the word terrorism.
Let me ask you quickly, let me change course for a second. I was on with Howie Carr, a very popular radio talk show host up here. He told me to ask you, if you were president right now, would you have gone to Paris for the global warming conference that the president is just coming back from?
I might not have gone. I actually think we have so many problems that are so much bigger. I mean, I'm not just talking about a little bigger. You look at what just took place in Paris, the other Paris from 2 weeks ago. I probably would not have gone, because if you look at what takes place and if you look at the deals that are made, I mean, Paul, China is not going to abide by the deal. Now, we have to do things now. They have to do things in many years from now. They're opening coal plants all over the place. We're not allowed to. By the way, we're selling them our coal. We're not allowed to use coal. We should use clean coal is another reason that, you know, we should. The coal industry is in tatters right now. And we should. There is such a thing as clean coal. It's a more expensive process, but it can be just fine. It's another way of breaking the system and doing something good. But China's using our coal, and what's happening is just like a disaster for this country, a disaster. So they're not abiding by anything. You know, you talk about not abiding. Iran has already broken the nuclear deal. We made the worst deal probably ever made by our country in terms of the stupidity of the deal itself. And already Iran is breaking the deal. And the ink isn't even dry on that terrible deal. So we have a long way to go as a country, I will tell you. We really need competent leadership.
We got a long way to go with this interview, so stick around, because when we come back, we're going to talk about Mr. Trump's tax plan. There have been some people who've been raving about it. There have been some critics. We're going to talk about what to do with Social Security, Medicare, the entitlements, and some of the other interesting things you have been saying over the last couple of weeks. Stick around. This interview returns in a moment. Welcome back to this special edition of NH1 Newsmakers Fiscal Fridays, but it is Tuesday.
Good.
Let's talk about your tax plan, Mr. Trump. We are live with Donald Trump right here in our studios, the NH1 studios. Earlier this autumn, you put out a very detailed tax proposal for tax reform, for tax cuts. It won some positive reviews. It also won some negative reviews, some criticism from conservative groups and from one of your rivals for the nomination. Take a listen.
Donald Trump's plan was supported by Elizabeth Warren. Wow. She's thankfully critical of my plan. That makes me feel better. I would have lost my footing if Elizabeth Warren was saying good things about my plan, but she likes Trump's.
Well, I would like you to respond to Jeb Bush. Also, I'd like you to respond to those critics who say your tax plan could lose up to $10 trillion in revenue over the next decade.
Well, we've had some tremendous reviews on it, some very positive, and we've had some people that think it's not revenue going to generate the kind of revenue. I think it will. I'm sure it will. One thing you have to understand, a guy like Jeb doesn't really understand business, doesn't know anything about business, in my opinion. I think he's not into this world of creating jobs and really creating jobs. Like I've tens of thousands of jobs in a private company. I don't have the luxury of government, and I've created over the course of time, over a relatively short period of time, tens of thousands of jobs. My tax plan will be very dynamic. It's going to lower taxes for the middle class. It's going to lower taxes big league for the middle class, because we're losing our middle income and our middle class people. they are being wiped out. They're like the forgotten class. They're the class that really built this country. They've done such an incredible job, and we've forgotten them. It's also going to lower taxes, big league for corporations and for small companies and anybody doing business. It's going to lower it down to 15%. Now, you have to remember, we were the highest taxed nation in the world. Under my plan, we would be among the lowest. Our company, our whole country will be dynamic. It'll be a whole change. You're going to have jobs. And one of the things very big in my plan, I'm cutting. I'm going to be doing a lot of cutting of waste, fraud, and abuse, which I can do better than anybody else. And we're going to bring jobs back from China, from Japan, from Mexico, and lots of other people and places that have taken our jobs over the years. You look at what's happening to our manufacturing. It's leaving the country. We'll be bringing jobs back to our country. And that's going to create a lot of revenue.
That's going to make up for the lost revenue.
We're going to have a tremendously dynamic, it's going to be something that people are going to be talking about. And if you look, Reagan did something that was very aggressive, and they all said, oh, it's too aggressive, and look what happened. I mean, a lot of good things happened. But I've been praised by many people, and many of the smartest people, for having a tax plan that can really change our country and the dynamics of the country. Interestingly, if you look at some of the other plans, they're going to be terrible plans. Nobody thinks they're going to work. I have gotten such wonderful reviews from so many people that I respect, including top business people. Carl Icahn, one of the great business people, he came out and totally endorsed me. He said, this is the guy that really understands what's going on. You know, when you talk about corporations, they're leaving our country now because the taxes are so high. It's called corporate inversion. But they're leaving our country. We can't bring trillions. It used to be billions. Now it's trillions of dollars back into the country because the taxes are so high that no company would do that. They have money sitting outside, and they're not bringing it back in. So a guy like Carl Icahn comes up, and Larry Kudlow is another one. He's a man I have a lot of respect for. Larry Kudlow loves my tax plan. He loves it. He actually said the other day on television, I think I like Trump's plan the most. So we'll see. One thing also I have to say, you're going to put this plan in front of lots of different people, and it's going to go through lots of scrutiny. There's room to negotiate. I'm a negotiator. There's room to negotiate. Other people don't have any room to negotiate, but there's always going to be room to negotiate. When I put something forward, I always have to leave something on the table, and we have things on the table. We can give up certain things, but
Anything
the plan.
you can share with us here?
No, the plan.
I
don't want to do that.
Right.
But the plan that I have is going to make our economy dynamic again. Right now, we have people that can't get jobs. The 5.2%, I always call that's a politician's number, Paul. They do that so they look good. Our real number is probably 25%. You have 100 million people out there. You have people that are looking for jobs, don't find them, and statistically, they're considered employed. So we are going to make our economy dynamic, and we're taking jobs back from other countries that for years have been taking them.
Let's talk about entitlements and Social Security.
Okay.
Another issue. You've talked about protecting Social Security and Medicare from any kind of cuts, any kind of spending cuts. Now, another one of your rivals says that's unrealistic. Let's take a listen to.
You can't possibly have any kind of fiscal success if you're going to ignore the most rapidly growing parts of the budget. I mean, it just doesn't work.
That's John Kasich, the Ohio governor. So how do you balance the budget by not touching entitlements, and also how do you save Social Security, which estimates are it's going to
do? Okay.
How do you do all that?
You do it by bringing jobs back, by being smart, by getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, I looked at Kasich's plan, and I mean, the guy he's getting nothing in the polls. He's down. He's embarrassed himself, even in Ohio in the polls. I'm killing him in Ohio. His plan would be so unfair to people that think they have. You know, people signed up for Social Security. They signed. It's sort of like signing a pledge. They signed up for Social Security. Now, some people want to cut it. They want to raise the age. They want to do lots of things. I'm going to bring so much industry back. I'm going to bring so much money back into our, I guess you could say, country and into our economy, that something like Social Security, Medicare, Ben Carson wants to end Medicare. He said, I'm watching this. I said, I can't believe it, because Medicare really does work. Now, there's tremendous waste, there's tremendous fraud and abuse, and there's tremendous, and people understand it. With Social Security, there's tremendous fraud and abuse and waste. And all of that, and everybody understands, that's going to be gone. We're going to run it professionally. It's run right now horribly, just like our country is run horribly. But the people that have their Social Security with me are going to keep their Social Security. But we're going to make our country stronger. We're going to balance our budgets, and we're going to do something that really is going to be good for everybody. But so many people have come up to me, Mr. Trump, I can't lose my Social Security. I don't want it cut.
No raising of the age, no means testing?
No, I don't want to do anything. No. We're going to bring money back into our country. We're going to bring jobs back. We're going to bring industry back. We're going to make our country rich again. I said it at a speech. I said, we're going to make our country rich again. And a woman raised her hand, Mr. Trump, that sounds so crass. I said, you know, unless, that's what I do. I make money. I've always made money. And it does sound crass, but unless we make our country rich again, we're never going to be great again. You know, my whole theme is make America great again. I can't make it great if we don't bring the money back in. We are going to save Social Security. We're going to do a lot of cutting because there's so much fraud and abuse and waste. But we're going, and Medicare too, but we're going to make our country great again, and people are going to be able to keep their Medicare and keep their Social Security.
Hillary Clinton says the country's already great. She wants to make it greater. You disagree?
Well, look, Hillary Clinton's greatest thing, in my opinion, and if she pulls it off, will be the fact that she's been able to avoid going to jail, because what she has done is a disgrace. General Petraeus, who I have a lot of respect for, he got 2 years probation. I mean, he was treated horribly on doing 3% of what she did. Every day you see the more classifieds come out, they keep coming out, the emails. And I think probably her greatest achievement may be the fact that she was able to get out of the email disaster, because she was a terrible Secretary of State. You don't get worse. Got a lot of problems. She's not going to win. And I'm leading against her head-to-head in every poll.
I think she would disagree with you if she was sitting here, but
well,
that is for another discussion.
I would think she would.
A lot more ahead with Donald Trump. Stay with us. We've got a lot of day of news stuff to talk about, some of Donald Trump's most recent comments. Stick back. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to this live special edition of NH1 Newsmakers. Our guest, live in our studio, Donald Trump, the Republican presidential frontrunner. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul.
Let's talk about some of the things you've been in the news for lately, and it's not about the policies we were just talking about. There have been some comments you've made over the last couple of weeks, a bunch of them, that have stirred a lot of controversy. Let's take a listen to a few of them.
People that were cheering in the other side of New Jersey, where you have large Arab populations, they were cheering as the World Trade Center came down.
Where thousands and thousands of people were cheering as that building was coming down. Thousands of people were cheering. So something's going on. We got to find out what it is. I do want surveillance.
Got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
So I got to ask you, I mean, right now the news about you is about these kind of things, these controversies. You're the front runner. You're ahead in the polls right now. Are these kind of stories detrimental to your campaign? Are they hurting your campaign?
I don't think so. If you look at, for instance, where I said the thousands of Muslims were cheering, as what turned out to be true. And papers came out today. There was a story in the New York Post. Somebody wrote an op-ed or an editorial talking about that. Curtis Lewa said something about it. Mm-hmm. The Washington Post said a very strong statement, and then he started to pull it back. Very liberal guy. He started to pull it back. And the Washington Post had an article. Other people know it's true. More things are happening. I've had hundreds of phone calls to my office saying that Muslims were dancing in the street and dancing on rooftops of buildings as the World Trade Center was coming down. And, you know, 14, 15 years ago, that's a long time, we didn't have the cell phones with the cameras. I guarantee you, if we had the cameras on those cell phones, you would have seen it. But there has been documentation. I just submitted 2 more documents today. In fact, I put it on @RealDonaldTrump. And a lot of people are starting to say, you know, maybe we owe him an apology. People are starting to think, because I'm right about it. You know, I don't mind apologizing. You know, people say, oh, I don't apologize. I don't mind if you're wrong about something, but if you look at what happened over there, and if you were in my office and see the kind of phone calls and tweets that I get, you know, it's a world of Twitter and Facebook, you look at the people. I was in Sarasota, Florida this weekend. We had 12,000 people, and it was like a love fest. It was incredible. And when I was leaving, people were saying to me, I saw that happen. I was in New Jersey. I used to live in New Jersey, Mr. Trump, and I saw that happen. They were dancing in the streets. They were dancing on rooftops. And there's now becoming more and more, there's documentation. So I think I was right.
The other episode that we just saw there that whether it was an imitation or not of that reporter with the disability, whether you knew him or not.
It wasn't an imitation. No, it wasn't. What I was doing, he made a statement. It was a very good statement in terms of my point. And he made a statement. He's a writer for the Washington Post. Now he's with the New York Times. Okay, but at the time he was with it. And then all of a sudden he starts pulling back. And what I did, and what I was imitating, because he said he knew me in the 1980s, like in 1985, 35 years ago, somewhat 35 years ago, and that he knew me and I was on a first name basis. I have a really good memory. I don't remember. And you know what? I wouldn't mind if I remembered him, if I didn't remember him. It's not that important. But I don't remember him. I didn't know that he had a disability. And I certainly, you know, I spend tens of millions of dollars a year, Paul, on disabilities, on, you know, the American with Disability Act. And I spend tens of on ramps and on all sorts of things in buildings, tens of millions of dollars, far more than I would have to. And I would never, ever insult anybody by doing that. I didn't know this. Now, I was doing it because he was pulling back, and I'm imitating somebody that pulls back and tries to get out of, and they tried to make it sound like I was imitating him. I didn't know he had a disability, and I don't remember the guy. I'm sure he probably interviewed me.
Here's my question to you.
I remember you.
Well, I appreciate that. Here's my question to you. At a time after these horrific attacks in Paris, where Americans are looking for a commander-in-chief, do these kind of language, these kind of comments, does it make you look unpresidential? Does it hurt your credibility? And we're just 2 months away from the primary.
Well, I hope it doesn't. I'm making a point. I'm saying this all started because people were saying that, you know, and I was saying we have to have vigilance over mosques because things are happening in mosques that maybe people aren't so happy about. There's some bad things happening. And they were saying, well, what do you have to do? And I'm saying vigilance in mosques. And I used that as an example in New Jersey. So it all started with the vigilance, which is a very important presidential point, whether you agree with it or not, but it's still a very important point. And then I said, I remember, and I saw it, and other people have seen it, and now many people, because we're getting hundreds of calls and everything else. So it all started with that. We were talking about vigilance over the mosque because bad stuff is happening. I agree, it's only maybe a small percentage, but it doesn't matter if it's 2% or 10%. The fact is that we do need to practice vigilance because there's some people out there that want to do great damage to our country. I predicted in my book Osama bin Laden was going to come in and do damage because he was a bad terrorist. He had a big mouth. He was talking big. And I wrote a book in 2000, before the World Trade Center came down, that Osama bin Laden is going to do damage. We have to do something about this guy. 2 years later, he knocked down the World Trade Center. I'm sort of pretty good at this stuff. I think one of the things I'll do really well, I mean, everyone says he'll be great on the economy, great in jobs, et cetera, but I think I'm going to be really, really great on terrorism, and certainly I win every poll by double and triple figures on the border. We're going to build a wall. We're going to stop the drugs from pouring in. You have a heroin product. I mean, what's happening here in New Hampshire with heroin is one of your biggest problems. I hear it all the time, every time I'm up here.
And you've
we're
said
going to build a wall. We're going to have great border security. We're going to stop so much of this stuff from happening. We're going to have a real border, not a phony border, not a little wall that they drive trucks right over. You see the pictures in the papers. We're going to have a real wall. It's going to be a real wall, and it's going to work. And it does work. All you have to do is ask Israel. The walls work if they're properly done.
Let me ask you about your meeting with the black pastors in New York City. You said that there was, quote, great love in the room. And some of the people in that meeting have come out and not expressed the same feelings. What I would like to know is, what were the three things you took away from that meeting that, if you were president, you would enact?
Well, I think there was great love in the room. We had 100 people in the room. We had a tremendous support. A number of them went out and spoke to the press and said fantastic things. I mean, I saw on television last night, fantastic things were said. Some endorsed me, and they endorsed me very strongly, and some had pressure not to endorse me from Black Lives Matter. They said, oh, don't endorse Trump.
What did you get out of that meeting, though?
Well, I'll tell you what I got. There was great spirit in the room. There was a great feeling that Obama has let them down because you look at the black youth. If you look at African-American youth right now, they're at 51% unemployment. And they were very upset with Obama and very, very upset with the Democrats, frankly, because they've been talked to and pandered to for many, many years. And a number of them said, we're tired of it because all they do is, well, they're politicians, and you could say that on both sides of the aisle, but they talk and nothing happens. 51% of African-American youth is unemployed. You look at regular, normal age, 35 to 50 years, it's double and in some cases triple what the white population is. And Obama has done nothing for African Americans. You know, you would think that he would have done a great job. You would have thought that he would have been a great cheerleader. He's been terrible. He's been the great divider. He has been absolutely terrible. And I'll tell you what, I was in that room, and that room was a love fest. It was tremendous energy in that room and very positive. And as you know, a number of those people went out, the pastors, they went out and they said, we're endorsing Trump.
Two words that have been used to describe you recently by some of your critics. I want to get your reaction. One is bully, and one is fascist.
Yeah, well, I think they're both ridiculous. The fascist is so ridiculous. And the bully, I want to get things done. You can't be a guy like a Jeb Bush who's very low energy. You can't be, I won't insult too many of the people, but you need a certain personality to get things done. You need a high energy temperament. I built a great company with the right temperament. I mean, if a guy like Kasich would die, he would be so bad as president. I watch him during the debate, the way he debates. He can't do anything. Again, in Ohio, I'm killing him in the polls. And that shouldn't be. He's the governor of Ohio. I shouldn't be beating him in the polls. Then he takes out ads that are total misrepresentations of what I said. He'll take a half a sentence, but he won't leave the whole sentence, and the whole sentence explains it perfectly. I mean, it's really bad stuff. And I don't even complain because he's so low in the polls he can't continue onward. But you need somebody with a strong temperament. You need a leader. Every poll from CNN and from others say Trump is by far the best leader. He's by far the best with the military, with the border, with terrorism, and he's by far the best with the economy. There's nobody even close. And I mean, like, where I'm at 68% and really high numbers, and other people are at 5 and 3.
You're not a bully.
I'm not a bully. I just want to get things done. I want to make our country great again. I mean, I want to make this country. We really have a chance to make our country greater than ever before. But we can't have 4 or 8 more years of what we've gone through for the past 8 years. We will not be able to recover, ever.
There's another Republican presidential debate coming up in a few weeks. Take a listen to a comment you made just a few hours ago. Okay.
But how about we do this with CNN? I won't do the debate unless they pay me $5 million, all of which money goes to the wounded warriors or go to vets.
Sure. Now, you floated this idea a couple months ago, but you didn't do it last time. Are you going to follow through this time?
Well, I feel a little bit guilty because, if I do that, they'll say, oh, he doesn't want to debate, he's chicken. Look, I've won according to the polls, all online polls have said, you agree, that I've won the debates. I've won all the debates. I've done fine, okay? I've done very good. Everyone have said I won. If I do that, and if I say, okay, I'm not going to do it unless the wounded warriors, I love the wounded warriors, I love the vets, I'm going to take care of the vets like nobody can take care of the vets. But the problem is if I do that, and if I say I'm not going to show, they're going to say, oh, he's chicken, he doesn't want to debate, the so-called opponents that I have. So I don't know that I want to be put in that position. I can say this. They probably expected 2 million people watching the debates. Fox had 24 million. CNN, which was the largest, I think, in the history of cable television, CNN had 23 million people watching the debate. They used to get nobody watches. It was nobody even wanted to air the debates, the early Republican debates, even the debates generally. They didn't want to air them. It was like a bad thing if you had to air them. They had 23 million and 24 million, record-breaking numbers by 20 million people. And I hate to tell you why, but everybody said, just ask Variety, ask all of the showbiz magazines why. I think that, frankly, a tremendous contribution should be made to the vets. I'd love to see it go to the wounded warriors, but the vets in general. And I would be willing to play out the game. I will say this. If my opponents guarantee that they're not going to say, oh, gee, what a terrible thing, they will say, oh, Trump doesn't want to debate. I do want to debate. I actually like the debates. I've done well in them. I like them. But I would like to see a lot of money go from CNN and from Fox and from NBC, like all of this profit. They're making a fortune. By the way, they're making an absolute fortune. I'd like to see the money go to the vets.
Final quick question. We're almost out of time. In September, you signed a pledge with the Republican National Committee not to run as an independent if you didn't win the nomination. This past weekend on the Sunday talk shows, you kind of sounded like you were floating the idea again of a third-party run. Yes or no? Would you run as a third-party candidate?
Well, look, I'm leading. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I want to, I'm leading by a lot, not just a little bit, and I want to run as a Republican. I just want a fair playing field. That's all I want. And I can't tell you. I mean, I hear they're going to do negative ads. That's not part of the deal. They're not, you know, save those negative ads for Hillary Clinton or whoever it's going to be. It's probably going to be Hillary, I would think, although it shouldn't be. The FBI should take care of that situation. But all I want is a very flat, very even playing field. But I'm running as a Republican. I'm running as a conservative. I'm leading in every single poll, both national and state, and that's where I want to be.
Donald Trump, thank you very much for joining us in this
Paul.
live edition of NH1 Newsmakers.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, sir. And NH1 News will continue in a moment.